A few weeks later, Crenden Theater was coming more alive than ever. Techs running around like crazy to get different pieces finished in time to move on to the rest of the set, and different actors running across and diving across the stage while stage combat training was rolling along. Meanwhile, Sydney was backstage in the green room, waiting for her cue and chatting with a few former crew and cast members. To anyone else, it was just an empty room with her in it, talking to herself and writing down bizarre details about random people. Each of the spirits were looking to her for help and desperate to find it wherever they could.
One at a time, please. I know that this is a delicate situation, but I can't hear you if you're all talking at once. Now, what were you trying to say again, Sam?
You see, I was killed before I got the chance to give my mother the snow regarding why I ran away from home. If you could find her and give her this, even if she's dead, I'd finally be at peace.
Can do, sir. What's your mom's name, and where do you think I could find her now?
Sydney took her time and gathered the evidence in order to fulfill the requests she received, filling her journal with all kinds of information because you never really know what's going to be important for later. By the time she was called onto stage, she had spoken to 5 different spirits and gathered information for their requests. As Sydney finished up writing her notes, Lady Articelli barged into the room.
It's time for our cue. Let's go, fresh meat,
she said with a dead look in her eyes and no emotions to match.
Heading out there now. Prima donna.
Sydney whispered under her breath and finished gathering her things as the two made their way to the stage. She looked back at the other spirits and rolled her eyes, causing them to giggle a bit before disappearing. The tension was so thick, but Sydney wanted to try and at least make an effort to get along with her co-star.
So, you feeling better after all that chaos a few weeks ago?
A Letty is never down for very long.
Is that something you've been dealing with for a while now?
You talk too much,
Lady Articelli said with a crack in her voice, effectively ending all of Sydney's desire to continue to be friendly with the nobility. The two reached the stage and approached Caleb and Adrian at the center.
Now you two are going to start prepping for the big ballroom number during the second act. Lady Articelli already choreographed a number, and I believe it'll take the two of you no time at all to learn it. Now let's get going.
Caleb turned and took off, heading to the group of the ensemble cast, rehearsing their parts for the dance number.
Sir Adrian, if you would kindly step forward. We are going to begin with learning the proper stance for a lead and a follow. So, Sir Adrian, place your hands here and here.
As Lady Articelli continued, Sydney couldn't help but feel a tinge of jealousy watching the two of them. It almost felt as if Lady Articelli was being overly flirtatious on purpose. She would proceed to get as close to Adrian as possible, accidentally bumping into him from time to time.
That's great and all, Lady Articelli, but I already know the basics for the waltz. It's Sydney that's going to need the refresher.
Please. I've taught waltz classes before and have no problem box stepping all around you. You probably couldn't keep up.
Oh, all right. Why don't you bring that confidence over here and show me how you're better than me all of a sudden?
If you two are quite finished, we need to continue to the routine. Since the two of you are apparently such experts, you won't have any trouble following along now, will we?
Lady Articelli said with a smug grin. She began to go 8 count by 8 count through the entire 7-minute long routine, making sure to speed through it as much as possible in an effort to throw them off, but the two continued to pick it up just as quick and laughed through the process. After a few hours of hard work, the two finally were able to perform the routine without music to accompany. Caleb, who had been overseeing the last few minutes of their practice, stepped forward and instructed one of the techs to play the music over the speakers. As the song began to play, Sydney suddenly became increasingly aware of her environment. Adrian approached her for the first steps of the routine. Bowing slightly to her, she became more nervous and a bit shaky. This was just the rehearsals, but there was still that feeling of someone standing on your windpipe. That feeling of fear that if you do something wrong, that's all people will remember no matter what. Adrian reached out and took her hand gently, and even though they had been rehearsing for hours, his hand was still just as soft and gentle. The two looked into each other's eyes for a moment, and then took a deep breath before taking that first step. Practically counting out loud as the music played, Adrian and Sydney were in perfect sync, occasionally stealing glances and little laughs from each other. The world just seemed to melt away as the two progressed through the dance, leaving only the two of them in the room. She in an elegant, long sequin ball gown, and he in a crimson red velvet tux with black accents. The two of them simply enjoying each other's presence. Nothing could diminish the perfect moment. A small crowd began to gather around the stage to watch them dance. Even the techs from backstage were gathering to catch a glimpse. From up in the rafters, above the audience, Jason was only watching Sydney. Seeing each of her steps and movements, he practically forgot that Adrian was even there with her. He could tell that she was happy, even from where he was, because it was infectious. He couldn't help but smile and began picturing Sydney on opening night. He knew that she was going to be successful, how she was going to get everything she ever wanted because she deserved it. Jason continued to look on as the dance came to an end. A small crowd began to applaud as Caleb approached the two, grinning ear to ear.
Just as I suspected. Instant classic, the two of you. This show is going to be incredible.
Caleb walked off giggling with excitement. Adrian and Sydney looked at each other for a moment, before suddenly letting out the breath they inhaled at the beginning of the routine. The two of them began to laugh.
Not too bad for a noble.
Not bad for a working class girl.
As the two exited the stage to pack up for the day, Lady Araceli was beside herself with rage. She could tell that the show would launch Sydney's career faster than a rocket with stage chemistry like that. With one more smug grin, Lady Araceli knew what she needed to do to throw a wrench in their perfect little partnership.
Didn't I say she'd be wonderful?
Sir Ian said, practically sneaking up on Lady Araceli.
I'm honestly surprised you don't think their chemistry is working a little too well.
He is the least of my concern. He may be a Rubyton, but Crenden tends to have a bigger effect on people.
Ian, you seriously don't think that a Rubyton, the family known for their advances in psychology, is not going to be able to seal the deal? I'm thinking I'm not the one who needs to be worried.
She turned and walked off stage, completely ignoring and almost running into Jason. Jason brushed it off and continued on his way. He passed by the cream room where Adrian and Sydney were gathering their things for the night. When he heard Sydney laughing, it stopped him in his tracks. Jason turned back around and waited another moment. He heard her laugh again, but this time almost harder than the last. He suddenly had a tightening sensation in his chest, turned around and took off running.
Yeah, let me walk you home. We've been here long enough for it to get scary dark.
Sure thing. But we'd have to make a stop by the cemetery. Long story.
That's fine, I think. I'll be here to fight off any zombies that may pop up.
Fine. But one of these days it'll be my turn to walk you home.
I mean, you are a lot scarier looking than me, so odds are we'd be safer with you protecting me.
The two of them kept laughing, this time catching Sir Ian's ear as he was walking by. This caused a shiver to run up his spine, an untrusting feeling he knows all too well. Sir Ian began to feel doubt. She'd never laugh like that with him around. She never joked like that with him around. She never smiled like that with him around.
Alright, Sir Adrian. I guess this means war. May the best noble win.
Sir Ian turned in the opposite direction and made his way out of the theater. Jason hastily stumbled into one of the underground passageways leading into a giant storage area located just underneath the stage. A place that was so quiet you could practically hear your own blood pumping through your veins. Back in the day, the storage room was where the stage techs used to take their breaks while on the job. The room was so out of the way, they would be able to have an escape from all the crazy. Now, it's just a graveyard of various large set pieces and props from past shows collecting dust. There was even an old jail cell from one of the first shows performed right after the theater opened its doors. The technology for fake doors wasn't really a thing yet, so the door could actually trap you. Unlocking someone on a daily basis is kind of a thing now because people are so trusting. Jason's vision began to blur as he wandered towards the nearby couch. He tripped over a fallen lamppost and fell down to the floor. He proceeded to lay there for a moment, then turned around and laid on his back, staring straight at the ceiling. Jason took a moment to let his mind work through the thoughts he was processing. He knew dwelling on these things would only make him angry.
I have to calm down. I have to calm down.
Jason muttered as he continued to breathe slowly and gently rubbed his head to relax. Outside on the streets in front of the theater, Adrian and Sydney were halfway to her place as the two of them began to chat about the rose she received from Sir Ian.
Wait, he sent you a rose? That's creepy, just straight up creepy. What did you do with it?
What do you mean, what did I do with it? It's a flower. I just put it in a vase with some water. In any case, the whole lead and producer skit isn't exactly a role I want to star in.
Yeah, seriously. But now you're in this weird position of not being able to refuse anything he asks of you. I mean, he can easily shut our show down if you're not careful.
Why is it that I feel it'd just be easier to be in a relationship in order to be more clear with these people? I should just be able to say no, right?
Well, in common sense world, yes, but we don't live there, apparently. Well, you couldn't afford it, at least. Okay, in the meantime, I can be close by and keep Sir Snooty away. But with my family's status, I'm sure he'd give you a little more space.
Thanks, Adrian. You'd actually be really helping me. I'm already thinking a lot about things, let alone who is or who isn't trying to get a date with me.
The two of them entered the creepy cemetery. The lights from the street lamps were the only thing illuminating the headstones. Sydney finally finds the one she was looking for and approaches a grave with the name Margot Hayden.
Hello, Mrs. Hayden. I know you're busy, so I won't take up a lot of your time. We've never actually met, but I know your son Sam. He wanted me to give you this, and wanted to let you know that after all these years, that he's missed you, and he'll be seeing you soon.
There was a sudden breeze that picked up the nearby leaves and made a perfect circle surrounding both Sydney and the grave. Sydney laid the note on the headstone and used a nearby rock to keep it weighted down from the breeze. She then smiled and turned back around to walk over to Adrian.
Hey, we're not gonna leave here like cursed or something, are we?
What? Oh, no. I was just doing a favor for someone. Come on. Let's go home. It's freezing out here.
The two of them continued on their path, this time a bit quicker so they can get out of the cold. Even though she had been doing this for days now, it seemed that so far she hadn't helped the one who needs it most, as Natalie put it before. But Sydney couldn't help but feel relief, knowing that she's helping people feel the same way after centuries.